performance tomorrow with the Chicago Jazz Orchestra will be your second such with them in the last couple of years. How do you find it different from working with small ensembles as opposed to larger groups? Is there any difference in the way you work with such larger groups, or do you have a preference?
Well, I just did this a bunch of stuff that has been orchestrated, much of which is my own original stuff. The Columbus Orchestra started doing this with me first. They had a wonderful couple of arrangers that went and did charts, and I did my debut, if I may, with them some years ago. St. Louis and East St. Louis, that's where Miles comes from.
Right.
We had a lot of players up there. So George is from Pittsburgh, and he came through Pittsburgh, and the rest is history. It made me leave my happy home at 17 years. So I left home with a big orchestra.
In recent years, some of your work has been sampled by hip-hop artists. What are your feelings and views on that, and how did some of this come about?
Since you're retired now, you have time, you can help me collect the money.
Is that problematic? Is that problematic?
Sure, because, you know...
so you do this without your consent?
Well, you know, first of all, these Madison Street lawyers don't know how to write sample licenses. That's number one. And number two, all this stuff is new, you know, and if you don't, those who snooze shall lose. If you're not on top of this stuff, it's gone in a minute. So I was talking to Richard Evans, a former, he's from Birmingham originally, but he's one of our great educators. He's in charge of the orchestral department in Berkeley for the last 17, 18 years, but Richard was associated with Chicago. He came to New York and Boston area from Chicago. We were talking about this sampling thing, because he did a lot of orchestral things with me that had been sampled. And we can't get paid.
Okay, that's a shame.
So it's really a blight right now. That's what has happened with this present age we live in. So if you have time, you can help me, since you're a retired professor and ex-administrative.
I'll look into that. Are you working on any new projects currently, or do you plan on working on any new projects in the near future?
Yeah, I'm working, staying home on my that's what I'm working on right now, Professor. Staying, if I may, staying in my favorite venue, home, because I never was the migratory oriented person. That's why I built that restaurant here in Chicago called the Alhambra, because I wanted to stay home. But what musician needs 43 employees? I had 3 chefs, one from Lebanon, one from the United States, one from Bombay, because I had an extensive restaurant. You don't, that's too young for you, too old for you. You don't remember, you're too young to remember. 1321 South Michigan. The building's probably gone now. But I had a restaurant here because the purpose was to stay home and work. But that didn't happen. I left Chicago. Carlo went to Chicago, went to New York in 1960. But I'm working on staying home and devoting my career to writing the things I think are important, and maybe doing some archival works at home on my pianos. I have 2 Steinways at home.
What about working on soundtracks? I know a lot of your music has been used in movies. Have you ever scored an entire movie, or would like to do that?
You know, I don't solicit any soundtracks. Clint Eastwood put some of our music in the Bridges of Madison counties, you know. But that's a different genre. I was talking to a previous interviewer about Miklas Rosa, who wrote the soundtrack, Spellbound. That was his thing. I mean, there's some Johnny Mandel, he's a soundtrack writer, Quincy Jones. Quincy is not out here performing. They're two distinct areas. And if you do soundtracks, Benny Carter, for example, he once in a while he toured, but his thing was the Snows of Kilimanjaro, writing soundtracks, which is a great gift, don't get me wrong. But I don't solicit soundtracks. I'm a performer, and now I'm going to be a stay-at-home writer. If you help me collect these royalties.
I'm going to work on that for you. We just have a couple more questions here. Of course, Poinciana is considered, you know, your signature song. Everyone wants to hear it. And what's the history behind Poinciana?
Poinciana was probably written before I was born. It's not my copyright. A lot of people think it is. I would like to have been, because when I did it, the writers laughed all the way to the bank. Well, it was already a hit, but it wasn't like it was when I recorded Poinciana. Right. It resurrected Poinciana. Said it was part written with Simon, I think, the Bernier and the other writer. Bernier is one of the writers, and now it's my signature song. People think so much so they think I wrote it, but I didn't write it. I recorded. It's a historic recording. Right. Possibly, not possibly, because I had two master musicians, Vernel Fournier and Israel Crosby, and what they're playing still is dominant throughout the world. I mean, people use that as a model still. Unbelievable what we did at the Pershing and the results therein, because it's still being aired. That's why there's no such thing as old music. Right. People ask me, do you get tired of playing Poinciana? There's 6,000 kids within a certain perimeter, a certain area in which we are now, trying to learn Mozart. So Poinciana is a baby compared to Mozart. Exactly. So there's no such thing, huh?
Classical music is played for hundreds of years.
European classical music. There's no such thing as old music. It's either good or bad. There's bad opera. There's good opera. There's bad American classical music. There's good. There's bad European body of work. There's good and so there's good spaghetti and bad spaghetti.
So. My partner and I, we talk about that often, because people like to put these genres of music in these boxes, and you know, we think that there's good music and there's bad music.
That's Duke's. I think Duke made that statement. I think they got that from Duke. That's not original either. Okay. American classical music is original, but right. I coined that phrase. But Duke, I think, said there's only two types of music: good and bad. And he was right.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, one last question. What advice do you have for young, aspiring jazz musicians?
Seek options. Have more than one exit door. Because if fire breaks out, if you have only one exit, you might get trampled to death. Okay. Options are learn how to conduct, learn how to orchestrate, learn how to be a great performer, and write, learn how to write, and learn how to teach. And if you have those options, you don't have a frustrated career for the most part, because you're someplace because you want to be, not because you have to be. And the only way you're going to do that, no matter how deficient some of them are, institutions of higher learning. That's what you must do. And if you listen to me, it'll go a long way. PhDs are not that difficult to get. 60 years ago was almost an impossibility, but now it's easy for those who persevere. Because you have to persevere. You can't be out here with all these distractions and think you're going to get a PhD or a master's degree or a bachelor's, because these distractions will take you under, as you know. So many kids in jail and this thing, that thing, unbelievable, unmentionable. So seek knowledge if it be in China. Only way you can do that is go to the institutions of higher learning. That's advice you give anyone, whether they're a physician, musician, whatever they want to be. Go to school.
That's wonderful advice.